Well, as a young woman, I think if you're like me, maybe you planned out your life personally and professionally. You had this great idea of how life was going to go. And then life actually happened, right? And it wasn't exactly what you planned out. If you can relate to that, if you go, oh my gosh, that was me, you are going to love my next author. She wrote the book Dust, and her name is Eva Marie Everson. Eva Marie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I can't wait to dive into your book. Let's just start
Thanks.
generally by talking about what the book is about.
The book is about the life journey of a woman. Starts when she's about 19 years old. She's finding love for the first time, becomes engaged, gets married, and goes through her story of marriage and how the fairy tale became reality. Her husband to be is carrying a secret that she finds out about 2 weeks after they're married, and this is her sink or swim moment. She decides to swim, and she sticks with her husband. She sticks with the marriage, but all the hardships that come from that secret, they are, you know, it's really about how when you have Christ as the center of your marriage, when you do things right and in the right way, that Christ is that thing that holds all things together according to
Yeah,
Scripture,
yeah.
and so that is exactly what he does. But it takes you all the way through. She At the end of the book, she's a grandmother. A lot of changes have happened in her life, but she is beginning to question, why was I even here? What did I do? What possible legacy could I have left as an ordinary wife and mother? And she discovers by the end of the book just how extraordinary a fingerprint she has left on the world.
What did you learn about yourself when you were writing this? This is
Oh,
such a deep,
yeah.
rich
Yeah.
topic. I mean, I think
Yes.
every woman listening can go, I get it. Can I jump in and just
Yeah.
share what I've learned in my ordinary life? But what
Mhm.
did you learn?
There were so many layers to the onion on this one. It took me 2.5 years to write. Most of my novels have taken me 6 months. This was a 2.5 year journey for me because it meant having to not just peel the layers of the onion in Allison's life, but in my own life, because I
Mhm.
was that young bride in the mid to late 70s, and my husband did bring a surprise to the table, and unfortunately, our marriage could not survive that secret. Our marriage, this was my first husband, and it very shortly thereafter the marriage dissolved. As of today, I'm married to my second husband for 43 years,
That
and
is
again,
wonderful.
thank you. It's such that difference of how you come at a marriage with honesty and all of that. But I heard the song "Dust in the Wind," and it reminded me of my first husband and our very short period of time together.
Mm,
And I thought, well, what if I could have survived this? And then I began to think, well, what would be a secret that a husband would bring into a marriage that is survivable? Because my situation was just not survivable.
okay.
Um, but decided what it was
Mhm.
and began to write out of that. Now, inside the story, there is a couple who do everything wrong. They are the polar opposite of Allison and Wesley. And because they don't approach love and relationship through godly eyes, I would like to just say that, through godly
Mhm.
eyes, everything around them is destructible,
Right.
and it's they leave bodies in the wake, so
Mm,
to speak, because of that. And so I was trying to show, making a life decision, getting married, even when it when the fairy tale doesn't turn out to be a fairy tale after all.
right.
There is a reality after you say I do, versus simply going about every relationship in the wrong way, and how those two things line up with each other.
You are such a tease. There were probably 3 things in there that you got so close to sharing, and then you have to get the book to be able to
Yeah.
get the details of it. I love it.
Yeah.
You did a great job. Eva Marie, there's also so much that I can relate to. In my personal life, there came a moment, and I think that a lot of listeners of yours can relate to
Mhm.
this, where you go, "This is not working. We're messing this up on our own. We need to either bring Christ into this or
Mhm.
we're not going to survive."
Yeah.
And that's such an important point. And even though this is fiction, there
Yes.
is this is almost a little bit of a foundation for marriage counseling. There is a lot
Yeah.
to truly be learned in this, which is
There
not
really
fiction.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I did too, just so that your readers know, I wrote this without making it overtly Christian because I
Mm,
wanted to go outside of the church doors with this story, with this understanding. I wanted to teach this principle the way Jesus taught. You know, he just told
mhm,
a story. It wasn't a Christian farmer and his non-Christian son. You know,
mhm.
it wasn't the Christian young ruler. You know, it was just a
Right,
young ruler and that kind of thing. So
right.
I wanted it just to be a story about people who live real lives. Now, my couple go to church,
Mm,
and so I wanted it to be where Christ was the center of their marriage, which any Christian would be able to realize. But let's say a non-believer would pick the book up and read it and say, okay, now what was different here?
mm,
And one of the things that just jumps right out at the very beginning is that Allison and Wesley are young. It's the 1970s. They are
mm,
very, very much in love. And I stress that, I mean, they have a passion for each other, but they determined to wait until they're married. Now, you know, for anyone who grew up in the same era that I did in the 1970s, it was a free for all. So
right.
this was a major, major decision where this young woman and this young man were saying, no, we want to do this right. Now, it's really comical because, you know, they're like, no, 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 we're going to wait. We're going to wait until we get married. We're going to wait. So you want to get married in June? How does January sound?
Yeah, right. Right.
They end up getting married in December.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so
Right.
it's like, okay, get your calendar,
Right.
not next year's calendar, this year's calendar.
That's right, right.
So,
Well, we ask our kids to wait, but then we don't want them to get married too young. You can't have it both
right,
ways,
right,
you
exactly.
know?
It's and so but I also wanted to show, and again with Wesley, he's carrying a secret. He made a terrible mistake at one point, and that mistake has consequences.
Mm,
And so there is a lot of conflict that rises in their marriage
mm,
because of the decisions that he made before he even met her. So again, I was looking at things like the actions of Cindy and Patterson, who are, like kind of they're that other couple.
right.
And Allison never really meets them. In fact, she never meets Patterson. She does briefly meet Cindy, but how their actions are causing consequences in the lives of Allison and Wesley. So yeah, can
Mm,
someone's actions, negative actions, have that butterfly effect, that ripple effect,
mhm.
so that the butterfly flaps its wings in Africa and causes a wave, a tidal wave in Florida, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
um, and then also just looking at how every day we make these decisions to do right and wrong, right and wrong. And just because you're in a good, loving marriage doesn't mean that temptation doesn't come your way, that
right.
you don't hit hard, hard times. That, I mean, you wake up one morning, the birds are singing, the sun is shining, and by the end of the day, your whole world has been turned upside down.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's part of living. That's life. But you stay the course. And that was what I was trying to show as well.
I love the fact that you've got the 2 couples side by side because it's
Yeah.
so much about decisions that
Hmm.
each of them make. You go about those
Right.
troubles and making those life choices,
Yes.
when you have a bad day.
Yeah. Yes. And
There's
we all have to make those
Mhm.
decisions. And so if you make the easy decisions, and the easier ones are the wrong ones,
Oh, yeah.
the easy decisions that are the wrong ones, then there is going to be destruction in the wake. If you make the easy decisions that are the right ones, even the hard decisions that are the right ones, either way. Although I think sometimes it's easier to do what's right than it is to do what's wrong,
Yeah. In
because
the
in
long
the
run.
end,
Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
longer we
yeah,
live, the more we know that in the end you're going to pay for it if
yeah,
you don't.
yeah.
Um, that that when we make those decisions. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to do the right thing. But also, I was looking at within this book, I wanted to look at the class system, not the caste system like in India,
Right.
but the
Right.
class system that sometimes money has a louder voice
Mm,
than poverty. And so again, you're going to see two women who are faced with ultimately the same decision, but one has money and one doesn't. One
mm,
has clout, the other doesn't. And
mm.
so it's how even how we would look at someone based on whether or not they are within the haves or the
Or the
have-nots.
have-nots.
So
Mm.
it also then makes us turn inward and say, okay, now how would I treat her knowing that story versus her knowing that story?
Wow,
There's a
there's a
very
lot of
complicated
layers.
plot. Yes.
Yes, yes, lots of I can see why you used the word onion in the beginning.
Oh,
There's a lot
yes.
to
Yeah.
unpeel. You know, we're kind of getting to the end of this, and
Yeah.
I wanna talk about real quick, touch on your other
Mhm.
books.
Oh, gracious. Well, Five Brides is a book that I've actually signed a contract, an option for film, and it's
Wow.
based on the true story of Joan Hunt Zimmerman. I love that story. Somebody came to me and said, "Oh, I want to tell you about my friend Joan Hunt Zimmerman. She's in her 80s, and this is her post World War II story." And I'm like, "I've got to have that story."
Yeah.
So I published that just a few years back. The One True Love of Alice Ann is my World War II novel. I mean, I've got lots and lots
Wow.
of novels. I've got a Cedar Key trilogy, Cedar Key, Florida, if you're familiar with Cedar Key. And
Yeah.
uh, the I've got a couple of three Christmas novellas and about 40 books in total, but that's just some
Wow.
of the more recent ones. If you go to Eva Marie Everson author,
Mhm.
.com, not just evamarieeverson.com, but Eva Marie Everson author.com. You'll see, get a bigger list of my books. The Potluck Club series, I wrote that with Linda Evans Shepherd. That's been a lot of fun. That first book came out in 2005, and people are still emailing us saying, "Oh, I just read this series." So it's so funny
That's
to me that,
awesome.
yeah, it's lasted that long, but it kind of hits the heart of church ladies. So
Very
yes,
relatable. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And even Marie, this what you just said is the reason that you are the perfect candidate to head up the Florida Christian Writers Conference. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I'm the president of Word Weavers International. It's if you want to know more about that, it's word-weavers.com. We are an international group of writers, over 1,000 writers. We're all about iron sharpening iron. So we're all about the education and building Christian writers up because the word is so
Mm.
important and how
Mhm.
we use our words so important to bring about the kingdom of God. And so in 2012, we purchased Florida Christian Writers Conference. It was about in its 26th year at that
Wow.
time. So we're hitting what, about 36 years now?
Yeah. Yeah.
36, 37 years. And we purchased it. Taryn Suiters and I are the director, the co-director of the Florida Conference. She is also my vice president at Word Weavers International. It's all about, bringing in faculty who are qualified to teach. And then, of course, not only teaching our conferees, but getting them in front of editors and agents and freelancers, mentors who can
Wow.
help them to be the best writers they can be. And of course, to get published.
Amazing. How can someone get a hold of you?
Okay, well, Eva Marie Everson,
Mhm.
author.com. EvaMarieEverson.com is a name squatter, and I've got to trademark my name to get that taken
Okay.
care of. So
Okay.
anyway, whoever thought I'd have to trademark my name, right?
The
So Eva Marie
ultimate honor, I
I'm
guess, right?
telling you, I'm like, what? And this website's hardly ever even written on. And so and I know for a fact that there is no other Eva Marie Everson in the world. I'm it. So it's a name squatter. But Eva Marie Everson author.com. You can reach me that way. You can go to word-weavers.com or reach me that way as well. And of course, if you go to word-weavers.com/Florida events, that's where you're going to find out about the conference is held right here in Central Florida in October of every year.
Eva Marie, so good talking to you. We will
You
catch up again
too.
later this year. Have a great day.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.